Hi, I'm Tom Salter. Welcome to Montgomery Public Schools Education Roundtable, an opportunity for us to visit for a little bit and to introduce you to some of the more interesting and exciting folks who work for Montgomery Public Schools and who take good care of our kids and their futures. And we always start with kindergarten. That's where the education starts, at least for the school system. And today we're pleased to have with us Ms. Catherine Rogers, and she is the principal of Brubaker Primary Elementary School, and we're so happy you're here.
Thank you. Proud principal.
Yes, indeed, indeed. It really does start in, well, actually, I guess it starts with parents, since parents are first teachers. And I know one of the challenges that that you face as an early grade educator is starting with where kids are,
Right.
and trying to get them to where they need to be. How big of a challenge is that?
The biggest challenge that I have is wanting children to love school. I want them to not want to leave at the end of the day. I want them to say, Mom, I'm not ready to go home. So for us at Brubaker, we want them to enjoy coming to school, love it all day, and, of course, learn through that process. But that's our biggest challenge.
Well, now you obviously love what you do. I mean,
do.
Every time I see you, you're bubbly and excited about whatever the thing is that's
Right.
going on that day. What made you want to become an educator?
I actually wanted to be a police officer.
Really?
I did. My brother is a state trooper. He works for Aaliyah now. And then I wanted to be a social worker. But I had 5 roommates in college, and they were all education majors. My mother told me she would not allow me. She wouldn't pay for me to go to college to be a police officer.
Okay.
She didn't want to do that with 2 children. So I saw my roommates love how much they were enjoying their classes, and I've always loved children. I've always babysat children, been around children in my church and in my neighborhood. So I thought, you know what, I still bet I can be a police officer and a social worker and be an educator. And really, an educator, you do have to wear all those hats. So it's worked out perfectly.
Well, the Brubaker is sort of an interesting and unique setup, I guess, for us in that, well, first of all, you have, what, 5 schools? Is that right? 4 schools.
4 schools.
4 schools on one big old campus.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of children in that small amount of space. But Brubaker is our only elementary school that's split into 2. How does that work?
Right. Between our school, which is pre-K through 2nd grade, and the intermediate school, which is 3rd through 5, there's over 1,400 children. So that is why I would assume we have 2 principals, 2 administrative staff, 2 office staffs. Our schools are connected, and we do collaborate. We work very well together. We're connected by a hallway with 2 nurses, but we do work collaboratively, but with 2 separate staffs because we are so large.
Well, I was going to say most of our elementary schools are 300, 400,
Right.
maybe 500, but that's about 800, 700, 800.
We
Am I
have
right there?
623. We have right at 623.
Right.
They have around the same, around 700. They're a little bit
Wow.
larger than we are.
Wow, that's amazing. So you spend a lot of time talking to Miss Starr.
Yes, we do. We communicate on a daily basis. We wave at each other in the morning when we come in the parking lot. We see each other on the bus lane,
Right.
and she comes over and checks on our babies. And I love to go over and see our children that have moved up. They think that's the big school.
Yeah.
To go to the intermediate school. We're going to big school.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Miss Starr, of course, is the principal at the Brubaker Intermediate School. And then from there, they just moved, most of them anyway, moved just across the street to
Right.
Brubaker Middle, right?
Right behind us, we see those those middle school students on our bus lane. So we're all right there together, and we do work together. We borrow each other's cafeterias, and we use their gym for things. So we do all collaborate and work together because it's like a big family campus.
That's wonderful. So I'm sure there's obvious advantages to that, but what are the disadvantages?
Well,
Disadvantages
yes.
is, how many S's did I put in that? The disadvantages.
If you have ever come at 7:30 or 3:30, you would know because the traffic is horrendous. There is only one way in to with 4 schools and one way out. And even though transportation is provided for our 1,400 students, bus transportation, especially with our little ones, a lot of them like to come and physically pick them up. We also have a lot of walkers and over 18 vans. vans
Wow.
that pick daycare vans that pick up between our schools. So traffic is a nightmare.
Even though a few years ago the system widened the road
They did.
and made it a little bit better and changed the direction.
Right.
I was always confused because it was like living in England
Right.
when in the way it used to be routed, but now it's a little bit better. Well, as an elementary school principal, and did you teach elementary school when you were a teacher?
I did. I actually started at T.S. Morris Elementary.
Mhm.
I was a first grade teacher there. I moved up to a math coach, and then transferred to Brubaker Primary, where I was a first grade teacher there as well. So the only grade I taught was first grade, and then I went back to being a math coach, and I did that for 5 years. So I've always liked the little ones, and I like math because it's hands-on and exploratory, so that's lots of fun.
Well, I know that in Alabama you don't have to go to kindergarten right now,
Right.
although there's some talk in the legislature about changing that requirement. But I remember Ed Richardson at one time told me, he said, if I could, I'd get rid of 12th grade and add pre-K and kindergarten, more
Yes.
pre-K and kindergarten. And your challenge is you'll have a student who comes in who reads on the second grade level as a kindergartner or first grader, and then you'll have another student sitting right beside that student who's never even held a book or
Right.
never had anybody read to them. How do you deal with that diversity in terms of the beginning, where they're beginning?
Right. Our teachers are like magicians, truly. Meeting the needs of all of our students is like a juggling act. You want to get to know your students, and that's what's so important about, especially in kindergarten. You want to know their background. You want to know what experiences help them to learn. So by finding students' strengths as well as their weaknesses will help a teacher differentiate the instruction, because for that student that's reading on a second grade level, what better person to show someone who's never opened a book, but to have a peer tutor right there to show, because children like to learn from each other.
Sure.
It makes them excited about learning. So teachers have tricks. They are truly magicians, and they know what to do with their babies. We have extensive training. We differentiate our instruction.
Well, now you'll need to tell the non-educators what
Right.
that means.
Differentiating instruction is just meeting the child where they are. Like you said, you might have children that come in on a second grade level, so we provide them with opportunities to read at that second grade level. We have computer programs that help do that. We have books that help do that, and then working with children that may need some additional support. So teachers allow students to work independently in the classroom at their levels. Teachers pull small groups back and work with students on different levels to meet their needs and to help make sure that everyone's growing to the level that they need to grow to.
Well, the way we educate children has changed significantly over the years. And the classroom that you just described would never have happened when I was in elementary school back when the dinosaurs still roamed the earth. But I mean, we had little groups, but it was like reading groups based on your ability.
Right.
But it was one teacher standing up in front of you and basically with a chalkboard saying, okay, the cow is
Right.
blue, or whatever the
Right.
sentence was. And now it really is a lot of interaction, not only between the teacher and the student, but between students and students.
Right. And that's what's important, especially at this young age. We want our teachers and our students to allow to learn developmentally appropriate practices. And through that, we want to reach them socially and emotionally. We want to reach their physical needs, their emotional needs, and of course, their cognitive needs. And so by allowing students to work together in groups, they are collaborating, they're problem solving, working with teachers. They're getting what they need by working with their teachers. They go to centers, which is giving them time to explore and socialize with one another. So they're learning academically while they're learning socially, emotionally, how to get along, because that's just as important as academics.
We've come a long way since C spot, run,
Right.
which is what I think that was the first sentence I ever read. When you're working with students in this more collaborative way, how do you work with parents?
I think what's important for parents is just to be informed. I want our parents to know that they're welcome to come to the school anytime, to not be afraid to ask questions, just as us as educators should continue to grow and ask questions. Parents should too. Just to expose their children. There's so much more out there than technology, and our children and parents are, it's just the world we live in now. When you ask a student, what do you do when you go home? It's sad to me that they say, I go home and play my game, or I go home and play on a tablet. So if I could encourage parents to do anything, it would be, to allow them to read from a book, to read with their student, to go outside and play with their children, just to, find out what their needs and interests are away from technology, because our children need to explore.
Well, every trip to the store, every trip to a restaurant, every walk down the street is an opportunity for a parent to help teach their child something, and to develop that. You were talking about you want the kids to love school.
Right.
In order to love school, they have to be curious. They
Absolutely.
have to have that undying thirst for knowledge.
Right.
And that helps to plan it, doesn't it?
Right, absolutely, it does. And one thing that helps with having children love school is just the personality of our staff, the personality of the other students. We're a Leader in Me school, and so we try to encourage. A Leader in Me is a 21st century approach to learning, and so we want our students to be leaders in the classroom and their learning as well as outside of the classroom. Everyone has genius. You have genius, and I have genius.
I do?
Yes.
Wow.
It might not be the same as mine, but we want children to find their genius and work on that. It might be artistic genius, it might be sports genius, it might be that they can draw, but we want them to find that and help them to help that become more exciting for their learning and give them leadership roles in the school. Imagine kindergarten students can be leaders, and they're excited about leading. They're excited.
Well, there's a kind of an age-old question that I love to hear the answer to, especially for the very, very little babies, and the old, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
What kind of answers are you getting now from kids who what do they want to be when they grow up?
Surprisingly, a lot of our babies say they want to be police officers. A lot of our babies, of course, want to be sports.
Right.
They're so famous. They just want to be famous.
Right.
A lot of our students say teachers, which is heartwarming because it makes me feel like we're doing something right. So a little bit of everything. A lot of firefighters. So
it's kind of the same stuff.
It really is.
Yeah, that through the years, that kind of surprises. We don't hear a lot of software engineers.
Right? No, not yet.
Well, but they don't really understand what they. But don't technology is sort of a double-edged sword. It's a good thing,
right?
But it doesn't need to be the only thing. But aren't we working with kids now on learning more about computers and technology at an earlier age?
Absolutely, because the way that our students are tested and assessed, a lot of ways are computer-based testing. But one thing that's interesting is the young age that they come in, they're very familiar with tablets, the manipulating tablets, their phones, touch screen. What they are not so familiar with is using a Chromebook, or a laptop, and so that's what we're trying to get them to learn, manipulating the keys, using the mouse pad, and showing how to integrate those parts.
Well, I remember the most useful class I ever took in high school, elementary, college, graduate school was typing.
Yes.
And of course, we did it on manual typewriter. Oh man, I'm really old.
No, I did too. I remember.
Manual typewriter.
Yep.
But now we call that keyboarding.
Yes.
But we didn't do it until we were like juniors
Right.
Or in high school, and these kids are starting in first and second grade.
They are, even kindergarten. We can give a child a page and they can type, they can write, draw a picture with the computer using the touch panel, and they can type a word or two of what they've drawn. So then they make a class book, and it's amazing.
All we had was Lincoln Logs.
Right. It's amazing.
Back in the day. If we're thinking about a family, and a family that has younger children that aren't quite ready to start, what can a parent do to help a child be ready for kindergarten or first grade?
I would say for kindergarten, make sure that they have opportunities to socialize with other children. A lot of our babies, I've been at Rebecca for 14 years as a teacher, administrator. a lot of our babies, it's their first experience. So a lot of students, you'd be surprised, don't know how to play well with others.
Really?
They're just, they've been with their mom, or they've been with
Sure.
their grandmother, or they've been with siblings. So that's something new. Of course, exposing them to print, reading, just becoming familiar with their surroundings, learning how to communicate with adults and other children, but especially just getting familiar with counting, numbers. Always, we want them to be excited about learning, no matter what the task is.
I know one of the challenges you have, or no, not just you, but the system as a whole, we have folks coming to us from all over the world.
Yes.
We have Korean, Spanish, Swahili.
Right.
We've got, I can't remember, 140 different languages spoken in the school system. And how do you deal with that, especially with a kid who comes to you who has very little or no English skills?
They actually pick up very quickly. We have one of the largest Hispanic populations in MPS. We have close to 130 Hispanic babies at our school, and they come in, they're very timid. Their culture is different than our culture,
Right.
so that's a learning experience for them. But they learn by, again, interacting with other students, watching what other students do. They pick up on verbalization and cues. Picture cues is awesome. We try to encourage our teachers to use as many as many pictures as they can,
Right.
to put a word with a picture, so
Right.
that'll give them a stronger understanding of it.
And technology is an element there.
Absolutely, just getting their hands in there and learning. So,
Does that make it more challenging when you're working with their parents?
it does. Sometimes we do see where parents might be a little timid to come to school just because it's a new country. They're not sure, who to communicate with. So one thing that we have put in place, this is our second year, having a full-time parent liaison who is also Spanish speaking.
Ah.
And so she's in the office, and she greets parents, and she can answer questions for them that we might not be able to answer for
Right.
them, and it just makes them feel comfortable. And we've seen a huge increase in the number of Hispanic parents that want to come and participate in school, which is so important.
That is really, and we also have some tools, like for instance our school messenger
Yes.
that calls to parents. We can do that in Spanish or Korean or
Right.
whatever. So that helps as well. But like for instance, when you have a parent-teacher conference,
Yes.
I can understand how it would be a little more challenging at your school with a higher population of people who don't speak English to have those conferences, especially if you only have, one or two people who speak Spanish
Right.
in the school?
Just one. We just have one that speaks Spanish. We have we have two EL teachers, one full-time and one part-time. But the goal is language acquisition for
Right.
our students and for our parents. We want them to feel comfortable, and so we actually offered after-school classes for our non-English speaking parents last
Wonderful.
year. Our parent liaison and our EL teacher worked, and their kids just thought it was great to see their parents learn something new.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's great. All right. So when you start the day,
Yes.
day in the life.
Okay.
So you get up and get to school at.
My goal is to be at school by 7:20 every day at
Okay.
the latest. I'm the first one there. My assistant principal, Miss Heather Grace, and I, we want to be the first ones there to greet those babies every morning. So we both take turns either greeting the bus students or our car riders in the morning. We get them settled at breakfast. We start breakfast at 7:20 each day. Every child in the morning is greeted with a high five or a hug, whichever one they want, and they love it. If you're talking to an adult, they will stand there
And wait.
and just wait.
That's great.
So,
that's fantastic.
we want everyone to feel welcome at school. We want everyone to feel like we are just so excited to see them. So we start our day like that. We do morning announcements. We have a Brubaker team pledge where we promise to take care of each other, respect each other. We talk about our mission, which is creating leaders and learning it in life. We try to give a little motivational speech in the morning, and then I like to hit the classrooms, walk around, greet those babies I didn't get to see, do to parent conferences, greet the teachers, pop in and see what's going on in the classroom. go to meetings if I need to, but just try to be visible as much as possible. I want my teachers to know that I'm there to support them, and my students to know that I love them and I'm looking out for them.
That's wonderful. And then as the day progresses, you get more and more things put on you, I'm sure. But what's it like in the afternoons when you're getting ready to dismiss?
When we're getting ready to dismiss, I say it's controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Especially when you have 623 students that are 4 years old to 7 years old.
Right.
You know, they're excited to get home. Like I said, we have 18 vans. We have close to 20 buses. So we have teachers on duty. I want to make sure that everyone's in place. I want to make sure that our students know what their responsibilities are when they leave the school, to walk on the third tile if they can, to walk straight to their buses and vans. They love to stop and see their old teachers, so I have to remind them in the afternoon, wave as you're walking down the hallway. Don't stop and see anybody. But just to make sure that everyone's safe, that everyone gets to where they need to be. Tell them we can't wait to see them in the morning. Have a great afternoon. Go do something fun. So just looking out for each other.
And I'm sure that the fact that there are another 700 kids right just from here to there doing the same thing, plus another 1,200 or so behind you,
That's
all trying to, and then the high school, the Magnet High School, which is on the back side of the campus.
Right.
That's a lot of folks trying to to get out in a very short period of time.
It is.
Do you have staggered dismissal?
We do. I think that the middle school gets out at 2:45. We get out at 3:10, and the high school gets out at 3:30. So it makes it a little bit better, but still that traffic starts coming in. I mean, I have parents that are waiting on their babies beginning at 2 o'clock, sitting out in their cars.
Yeah, not to mention, what's that, Bell Road?
Yes,
and
in Troy Highway.
It's Bell Road's 2 lanes still right there, and
is.
it's tough. So if you're going to any of the Brewbakers at any time close to morning take in or dismissal, you want to take a sandwich and a book maybe.
Take a deep breath and just know that we're taking care of our babies.
Yeah, it's tough. So the what do you see as when you can put kind of a gold star on something, when you can say a kid has reached their goal? What are your goals for each of your babies?
For each of our babies, I just want them, again, and I know I've said this 20 times, but to love learning because it's so important at this age. I mean, we are the foundational grades for school. So, of course, reading is the top priority. They've got to learn to read to be successful in school. Literacy is huge. Literacy is not just reading, it's writing. Listening, so I want them to be good listeners. I want them to read and enjoy it, read fluently, just depending on the grade level. I want them to be proud of the growth that they have made. It's so much fun to see students coming in almost as blank slates, and by the end of the year they have gained so much knowledge and they're so proud of themselves. So I just want to see growth, and our teachers want to see growth. They work so hard. Our teachers work so hard with our babies every day, and to see even a small amount of growth is awesome. But a gold star for me is for students to reach their academic goals, to reach core in reading or to reach benchmark in math. So
what's the most challenging part of your day?
I guess just not being able to be everywhere that I want to be. You know, for me, it's a non-negotiable for me to greet my students at the beginning of the day. It's a non-negotiable for me to be in classrooms and see what's going on, to see how I can help support teachers by, you know, planning PD, by looking at their instruction. When parents come in, I always feel guilty if I say, I can't meet with you right now, I'm sorry, I have a meeting, or I promise as teacher I'm coming in. So I'm definitely a pleaser. I want to make sure everyone's happy. People laugh and say, tell me all the time, Rogers, you're not a cupcake, you can't make everybody happy. But for me, that's what I want, especially at a school that's just, you know, when you're working with 4 to 7-year-olds, I just want everyone to be happy.
And I'm sure it's even more of a challenge because some of your kids come from really challenging backgrounds, especially in terms of economics.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the most challenging. What's the most rewarding part?
The most rewarding part for me is just the hugs and the smile that I get. from students in the morning, just to be glad to come to school, for them to say, come in my room and watch me read. They're so proud of themselves when they learn something new, and for them to want to share it with somebody. If they want to sit down and tell me something or tell my staff something, for us to be able to take the time to really listen and get to know our students, because students are not going to be successful unless they feel that connection with you. So to have connections with my staff, I have a large staff, and I can say that I could go down the line and know something about each of them, you know, to just try to make personal connections with the people that you work with. And so our kids will see that, just modeling the way for our babies. So for me, the most rewarding is the personal connections that I make with our students and our staff, and of course our parents as well.
Well, what do you need? How much time we got in here?
You know, I just want people to have a positive outlook on the school system in our school. I would encourage people, that the naysayers, to come by and visit. Of course, materials are always needed. Extra help is always needed. If people say what they can do, I tell them to come by and let me just walk them around our school, so that way they can see for themselves. Children love to meet new people. They like to communicate with new people. They like to learn from new people. So I love having visitors come in. I love to expose our students to as many things as we can that a lot of them don't have the opportunities to. It might be transportation. It might be due to the fact that their parents work and they have to leave school and go to daycare until their parents get off. So exposure, I would invite community members to come by and just see what they can do to help. I don't have an exact list. I just always encourage people to come by and visit.
Your list probably changes from day to day.
It really does.
Depending on what. I know that you're talking about exposing them to new things like field trips and things like that. Do you, I know you spend as much time doing that as you can, but with little kids, sometimes that's a little tough.
Sometimes it's tough to get them to, you know, when you think about one grade level, I have 10 classes on a grade level, so to transport 230 kindergarten students is a little frightening.
That's 5 buses or something.
But I mean, it's fun for them to go places, but it's also fun for people to come in and see.
Sure. Well, you can go and see the wonderful things that are happening at Brubaker Primary Elementary School, just off Bell Road, there in the Brubaker complex. And I know that Ms. Rogers would be happy to have you come and visit and sit in the classroom, read some Dr. Seuss if you want to some of the kids, and the kids would be happy to see you. But that really is a key. This is a good way for you to learn about us, but a better way is for you to visit a school and find out what's really happening in Montgomery Public Schools. Thank you again, Ms. Rogers, for being with us today, and we appreciate you taking the time to find out a little bit more about MPS, and we hope you'll join us again on MPS Education Roundtable. Have a good day.